bought it for $12,300, but it was vacant land. They bought the vacant land. So there's no telling what they spent on construction, but they bought that piece of land for $12,300 back in 1998, March 16th, 1998. And the person before them had bought that same land for $3,700 back in 1972. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Memo, Florida Real Estate with Robert Morillo, broker associate, Team Aroa at Compass, Florida. License number BK3373543. Good morning, John. What's going on?
Good morning, John Sepulveda, MLS 1309244. Coming at you for another episode of the DM. How you doing, man?
Episode 16.
Episode 16.
Week 4. Super exciting. Today marks the the countdown begins. We are counting down 30 days to the May 10th report.
I don't know, man. I was so disgusted on Friday that
Tell me what happened.
I'm reconsidering changing strategies. Yeah, I was so frustrated on Friday.
Yeah, what's happening?
The reports came out. I mean, it's frustrating as hell, because I want to see this. I want us to come on the other side, and it's there, and they just keep on coming up with data that's just, it's absurd. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm not a believer in conspiracy theories, and I'm not going to go on that path. But there's something there that you know what I mean? It's just not. They came up with, I guess, in the January report, they added 800 and something. I just this weekend. That's when I discovered, like I found it. 820,000 jobs that because they go back and adjust the reports afterwards. They revise them and so on and so forth. So they found 800 and something thousands from first quarter 2022, and they felt it was a good idea to plug them into this year's numbers. Yeah. More fake data out there. So it stinks, you know what I mean? Because it's frustrating, because you see the data, you see the numbers, you see the data. The market was ready for, and we started kind of making. Wednesday we had the kind of, a set of numbers. Thursday we had similar set of numbers, and then Friday we come back with a completely different set of numbers. It wasn't as crazy as the February report, but it was enough to offset whatever gains, and it turned the market the other way. So instead of, in those charts that I showed you last week, there's a couple of support levels underneath, like the lines that I showed you across. Those are like support levels, and it was there, like it was there for the take, and it was there, and on Friday just bounced back up again. So we're back up again. There's some repricing, on the up, on Friday, and it's there. It's just. So we got PCI this week. We'll see what the data shows, what the numbers show, but we're still on the countdown for May 10th. But I'm not gonna lie. Friday when I saw the report, I was like, crap, this. I was like, I don't want to, like, it just frustrated the heck out of me, because it stinks, like, to see the numbers there and to know that the data's there, and they're looking at this data that's just not accurate, and people are making decisions based on it. Obviously, it affects the market. Rates, stay there. It's volatile. It's just too many. It's all these things at the same time. But having said that, let me stop whining. Tell you what I saw. So there was 236,000 jobs created, and the expectation was 240,000. So it kind of came in like right spot on what the expectation was. But we were short on new job openings, 600 and something on Wednesday, and the ADP report was also lower on Thursday, right? So instead of this being lower, it pretty much came in at exactly 236 to 240. What jumps out at me? The way they come up with the unemployment report is based on the survey that they do, right? That they did on Friday. We've talked about this before. It's there's a lot of people working multiple jobs, so on and so forth.
Side
So
hustles.
the data is just kind of based on, there's a lot of numbers out there. What's interesting in the report, I caught the stat and I got to read it because there's too many numbers, but the average, and that's a funny thing, like on Friday when I saw the report, when they announced it at 8:30, right? They're digesting the numbers as kind of the commentators and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a stat, which the Fed takes a look at, which is the average weekly hours worked, right? And the comment from the person who was like announcing it said, and so the hours worked declined by 0.1 hours. So the average work week is 34.4 hours per week, right? So and this is an example of how the numbers sort of, how this works, right? How people get their information, and it depends how you look at the information, how this is, right? So the person who was speaking was like, oh, the fraud about the numbers came in, and she's reading the stuff and blah blah, and then she got to this part of, hours, they reduced by 0.1, so the average is 34.4, so pretty much the same, no big deal, and just kind of moved on to the next section, right? So that's how they reported that, right? Mm-hmm. But if you go down and break down the data further, this is the lowest amount of hours worked since 2019, not including COVID.
Okay.
Taking COVID out, it's the lowest amount of work since 2019. That means that on average, out of the 161 million workers in the US, their hours were reduced by 0.1 hours. So you take 161 million workers, because that's the average hours worked, and they were reduced by 0.1 hours per week. So instead of, and we kind of talked about this, right? Instead of jobs or layoffs is the last thing to happen, right? They freeze hiring, they cut hours, they cut, you know what I mean? And then when there's no more, then that's when they lay people off. But if you calculate 161 million workers less 0.0 hours in that week, if you extrapolate that out entirely, what it actually, if they had lost jobs instead of reducing hours, the amount of reduced hours, the proportion is equal to 468,000 jobs.
468,000 jobs.
Yes.
Wow.
That's what if you calculate the lost hours by by the wages, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
That the equivalent would be a loss of 468,000 jobs, not a gain of 236,000. So that's a swing of 600, almost 700,000 jobs. That's the swing on that job report. If you take the average, again, that's not what happened, right? That's how we're just hanging there with a thread.
Minuscule.
We're just there with a thread, and the report is right. Math is math. Lies figures don't lie. So eventually, that's going to come out. Like that report is going to, the real number has to surface. Like, you just can't keep on adding adjustments and seasonal adjustments and forever. I mean, it's going to come a point where this whole thing is going to kind of, it's bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
So you see that number, like when you look at it that way, how, number one, how bad the information is coming to the people. Oh, no big deal. It's the same thing. Nothing to see here. Move on. But 0.1 hours, that's nothing. We're great. But if you look at it, I mean, that's just an average. It's just a number. And it's how you see the data, how you read it, interpret it, will tell you the number, right? So that number says that there should have been really $468,000, 68,000 jobs lost. So that's obviously going to affect unemployment. It's really should be higher than it is. And we're looking at numbers that are just not, fuzzy math. It's just they do some fuzzy math and show these reports, and then people take that and make decisions. They invest in the stock market or not. They buy a house or not. Stay paying rent. No, the market, the rates, the market, it's not changing. It's not, the house is going to crash. And 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 it's kind of all related to what today's topic anyway. It's just this kind of the state of the real estate market, but that information is what causes people to make incorrect decisions because they don't have the correct information.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's not enough people out there with the correct information to relay that to people. So that's the state of the market.
That's the state of the market. The job reports, based on job reports. So now, is there any updates in regards to, you had also mentioned the production of oil being cut back?
Yeah, so OPEC, this happened last week. So OPEC decided that there's not enough consumption going on, and they're going to cut 1.16 million starting in May, 1.16 million of barrels per day on top of the 2 million that they cut back in November. What I said last week when I kind of reported that I misspoke, remember last week? I said 500,000. The 500,000 were from Saudi Arabia alone.
Oh, okay.
The total is 1.16 million from the OPEC producing countries. Saudi Arabia is 500,000. So that's what I saw the 500,000. I'm like, but it was, then they came back, it's a lot more than the 500. Yeah, it's double. So it's quite a bit of, it's a high number. It is, you see gas at the pump. You see it creeping up, and it's only going to get worse because it's already the spring gas prices goes up in the spring anyway. That's when driving season starts. So they always it's a business, right? They make money. That's when they got us used to that. We're accustomed in the spring we pay more, in the summer we pay more, so they automatically it just automatically happens. Throw that and the rise in the barrel, I think it was up 85, 84. It was, went up in the 80s. We're in the 60s a couple of weeks ago, high 60s. So that's going to add to the inflation. See, that's the problem, right? So you have and you got the market betting on the Fed's going to pivot or the Fed's going to stop cutting rates, right? But then at the same time, the Fed is saying, no, you guys are wrong. Inflation, inflation, it's going to continue, pain. And people are betting that the market that's going to stop. But then you take a look at because inflation's coming down, but you take a look at the balance sheet, the Fed's balance sheet, from all the money that they've had to print for the banks, bailouts that they did. So that's new money that's going onto the balance sheet. So that kind of offsets what they've been doing by taking money out of the market. They're putting it back in.
They're having to put it back in. Yeah.
So we took 2 steps
forward and 3 steps back. Counterproductive.
Right. Well, the Fed said, this is not QE. We're just printing money. But they're throwing it back in the system, so it's on the balance sheet. You can't get rid of it. So we took 2 steps back and 2 forward and 3 back, right? So that's on that front. And then now you kind of have gas right? It's kind of 3, whatever it was, 330, 3 in the low kind of 3s, but that was lower, right? So because a year ago we were at 4 and so like $1 more. So we have lower, so that's inflation, right? If it goes down, that helps with that inflation number. But now if it suddenly gas starts going back up again, well, that's going to add to the inflation. So you take the growing balance sheet, you take rising gas prices. So the inflation number is really not going to go down too much. And the Fed's going to keep on saying, we got to keep raising. That's why this week's report, we'll see what the inflation looks like. And then we got next month's report, right? And that's where because those reports based on last year's data, it's where you should see a huge number, and where it's like significant and people are like, oh my God, okay. So
yeah,
stay tuned. I don't think it's going to be it's not going to be as dramatic, especially, the jobs have, at some point they have to stop, right? This month was 90, let's see. In the 236,000, 72,000 of those gains were from leisure and hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
72,000 was from leisure and hospitality, and 47,000. We're talking about 236 jobs created, right? 72,000 were from hospitality, and 47,000 were from government.
Okay, 72,000 of how much?
Of 236,000. So 76,000 of those 236, 72,000.
So 31%.
Which is a good number. But remember, we've been talking like we're almost at like 10 million jobs pre-pandemic, and we're pretty much there. So there's nothing that leads us to believe that there's going to be an expansion of jobs in the hotel and service industry, right? Because pre-COVID, that wasn't really a thing. Like people people not wanting to go to work or not working, or like, you know what I mean? The shortage that we're seeing, that wasn't a thing before COVID. That only appeared before COVID. I mean, after COVID. So,
well, really, because even during COVID, initially, people were preferring to be at work. It was when the stimulus came out.
And that came in, exactly. But the amount of jobs was not, there's nothing that is increasing, right? No, I don't know. Suddenly a whole new tourist area that didn't exist before, it didn't appear, it's the same places. So we were about 10 million before, in the whole country. We're pretty much almost there. So there's not a lot more to go on there. And they've been averaging 170,000 per month job creations on the service and hospitality.
So right? Between service and hospitality and the government jobs, that's at least 50%.
Well, in this month's 47,000 jobs, but there's not going to be 47,000 jobs from the government every month.
Exactly.
Again, I'm saying that's just not happening. And the layoffs, it's the opposite. Companies are announcing layoffs. So you have these numbers that pop, like 47,000 for government. I mean, that's just a huge number. Like, okay, where, like,
is that, you think a lot of that is like the IRS?
Could be.
They include all those IRS auditors.
They're gonna pay the funding for 80,000 more to audit us, and and then you have them saying, yeah, the ones that are gonna get audited are the people that are making $400,000 less. So sure, I mean, that's what they say.
Yeah, that'll be a conversation for next week. Next Tuesday, August 18th. Is going to be annual tax day. We're going to have a tax specialist on the show for next Tuesday.
Stay tuned for that.
So y'all stay tuned for that.
So you know what I'm saying? Like that's how the those numbers that's just odd. It's just the 47,000. I mean, so if we take those numbers combined, that's almost 50% of the new jobs created. Which I'm not saying they're fake jobs. They're real jobs. What I'm saying is, or what I'm suggesting is that you can't just look at that and say, oh, the job market is super strong and we're good, because we're really not. Like, I think if you go out and you actually talk to people and you see people in the street, you will see people. Things are starting to tighten. Things are starting to. They really are. People are starting to hold back, and so we shall see.
Yeah, that's when things get tight, people stop spending money, the money stops circulating. I think that's what really puts a slowdown on the economy overall.
I mean, that's it all contributes. I mean, not data. I was reading some data this morning. I don't have all the data, but commercial loans volume is way down. There's a report that came out, and 200.
But it doesn't. Yeah, as far as loans go, correct. But I don't think it doesn't mean people are not transacting.
No,
people are still doing cash transactions.
I'm talking about commercial loans.
Yeah, I know.
So what we've been talking about, but the problem is that the transaction is one thing, but the loans signals something else. Like the lack of loans we've been talking about. Banks are struggling. People are taking the money from the banks. They're taking. Like savings are no longer, like, that's not a thing. Bonds are paying more money. Government bonds are guaranteed. So people are taking the money from the bank, the ones that do have money, and they're putting it in the bond market because it's safer than the bank. So because people are afraid of what's happening in the banks, and the interest rate You know what the VIG is?
The VIG?
Yeah.
No, not.
That's a term from the north. Actually, it's you see that in a lot of the mobster movies, the old time kind of mobster movies. So the VIG is what the mob, the interest rate, that they charge the people, the Jews.
Oh, okay. The shark loans.
Yeah. But it's a term from like the mob, like movies, So the VIG,
Gotcha.
that's what they charge, the VIG, So
All right. How has there been any changes in interest rates on home loans?
I mean, yes and no. They've kind of done this, but they're in the same range that we've been for a little bit,
Between 6 and 7?
Not quite six, not quite six, low sixes, but not quite six. We didn't get that, but now we're going the other way.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's when you catch it, if you catch it on, before these reports but it's been in the range and it hasn't really moved too much.
I hear that. Well, I'm gonna go over really briefly some statistics here for the past 7 days. As far as the movement of the market, home prices. So in Orange County, the last week we've had 262 new listings.
Okay.
136 have come back onto the market. 76 price increases and 286 price reductions. And 289 sold. Those are numbers for Orange County. Osceola County, we've got 253 active listings. 179 of those are new listings. 63 have come back on the market. Price increase on 70 listings. Reduction on 280 listings, and 116 sold.
Tell me how many active listings?
Active listings in Osceola County for the last 7 days, 253.
253. And how many new listings?
New listings came in at 179.
179. And how many came back in the market?
63.
63 came back. And how many price reductions?
280.
Oh. What does that tell you? You're a realtor.
I mean, people, what it tells me, a clear indication, the pattern that I've noticed is that people are coming in hopeful and then realizing like, all right, wait a minute, I can't necessarily demand the price that I want just because the market was up. We gotta be more realistic here. That's a huge pattern. People are like, oh, well, I want to put it like, for instance, something that our compliance department is having us do is having our sellers sign the CMA, right? When a property, when you give your client a CMA report and it says, hey, based on what the market is telling me, the value of your property is ranging between, 590 and 620. And they still want to list at 680,000.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Hey, sign this report. So and basically when we have little to no activity, if we have little to no activity within the first 2 weeks, then we circle back and see what adjustments we got to make.
Because you're going in overpriced already.
Correct. And then when you have a lot of agents that are buying the listing, right? Like, hey, we'll list it at whatever price you want to list it at. Then that's when you see the adjustments
coming
happening,
back on
reductions.
Exactly. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
So okay. So we're on the same page. So to me, I read it slightly different. I don't read it as sellers are hopeful. I read it as sellers unrealistic. But you said the number unrealistic, you finish the sentence with that. So, that's where I differ on that definition. Because I think that's what's happening. And I don't think it means that I don't think the high number of price reductions means that the market is tanking.
Yeah. Oh, not at all.
You know what I'm saying? Well, because somebody
Not at
could read
all.
that. Somebody could read that and say, "Oh, well, the market's tanking, 200 and price reductions in Osceola County. Forget about it. Do them and 2008 over again."
Yeah. No.
If
No.
you
No.
read that stat like that,
Mm-hmm,
and you don't
mm-hmm.
have the data to back you up, you could totally say, "Oh yeah, let me stay away from this." But no, because there was 60 something price increases.
Exactly.
That those are the people that went in the market at the right price. They were smart and they listened, or they had a good agent that guided them and they listened. And now they're in situations where there's possibly multiple offers.
Yep.
The only
And
way that
not
explains it.
only
And
that, they also see recent closings when the new solds come in, and so
there's
now they
room.
have different comps in the area that validate the value.
Mhm.
So
So I mean, I think that I interpret that as, and I'm no expert, as a realtor, obviously, but I interpret that as the market's not crashing. The market is
yeah,
there, and if the people go in with the right price, and they're going to sell their home. Now,
absolutely.
any idea what the pre-pandemic, what the average, like Orange County was 200 and something listings or actives, or new,
Mhm.
was the new listings? Like what was the number pre-pandemic? Any idea? You
No.
remember, like
As far as listings,
new listings?
okay. Well, what I can tell you is that listings were not lasting for
Oh yeah,
more
they were yeah,
more
But
than
I'm
3
saying
days.
the amount of activity is, I guess, the listing. Like, do you remember what the like the weekly was?
I can't recall. No, not
Curious. I
specifically.
wasn't paying attention to it like that, and that, like, keep a number. Obviously, why would why?
Yeah, no, I was paying attention. I wasn't paying attention as much either. I was
Mm.
just,
Yeah, you just look at the
everybody
data and
else
okay,
busy
yeah,
in the market.
yeah. And you look at the data, okay, great, but I'm just curious. 200 whatever, active. What was the number back then? Was it 500? Was it 1,000? Like, who? What was the number? Just curious what that was before COVID.
Yeah,
Because that kind of, obviously, COVID is, it's kind of pre-COVID and post-COVID, right? You got to look at the market sort of in
yeah,
that
the
sense.
market was absolutely hyper accelerated
Hmm.
due to COVID.
Yep. Which kind of jumps in with the next point, is the impact on, COVID, the impact COVID had on both buyers and sellers.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think people just misread a lot of it, especially the ones that bought overpriced.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. The ones, I mean, and I'm sure what the impact that COVID did, right? In my opinion, it made people think. It made people, one, value their space a whole lot more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so people were either, hey, I've got to sell my house to buy a new space that's more accommodating to my lifestyle and or family's needs, right? Or I need to reinvent the space that I already have, right? Or I need to buy, and like now is the time to buy, right? Or now's the time to not buy because it's too competitive out there. So, but as far as valuing your space, I think it mattered more. People cared more about not being so close to their neighbors, about having more property. And like even it reflected in the Airbnb market, the short-term rental market as well, because literally, we had units that were more away from the inner city that were doing way better than our condo units. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
That makes sense.
people reevaluated a whole lot during the pandemic. And I mean, even if people did overpay in one instance, at the time, to them, what mattered more, they don't consider it as overpaying. They paid for exactly what they wanted.
Agreed. I think that's a valid I would add to that. I think there's a lot of people that did maybe with the same kind of thought process.
Mhm.
Because there's some areas in the country,
Oh yeah, like you were mentioning last week in San
Ohio.
Francisco.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I don't mean in that. I mean, like,
Okay.
there's some other areas like Ohio, right? Some
Mhm.
random places that just out in the boondocks and far away from. I think that segment, that's what they went for, and
Mhm.
they increased property values in those areas dramatically during the pandemic.
Mhm.
All the people working remote. Right now, what's happening
Oh
is,
yeah.
and if you see some of those areas, there is, the little activity of price reduction and stuff that's going on. It's in those type of areas. Besides California, besides the crazy, that's a different. Issue, right?
Animal.
I think these ones are people went following that. Like, I want to get away from everybody. I want room. I want, I work remote, so I can leave the city and go to these places. And now that pandemic's over, some people are having to come back to work, so on and so forth. That people are having, to make decisions. You go back to work, or you know, sell the house and go back, and that's where they overpaid. So I think that's definitely there. California, as we talked about, and Illinois, California, New York, these other states, it's just the amount of people leaving the state,
Mhm.
moving, to other states. So obviously that has an impact on people staying back, because there's less people. Like, now there's not people really flocking, like buying. Now they're just actually leaving. So that's having an impact on the market. And definitely the West Coast is the one that is seeing the biggest impact. MBS Highway does a monthly housing survey that it's just completed by age, just realtors and lenders in the whole country, and it's just a survey of how they're seeing the action and how they're seeing, and the surveys that have come out, like, it's the West Coast that's definitely dragging property value.
Mhm.
The rest of the country is slightly, but growing. You know what I mean? The property values. It's not 20%, but it's definitely not losing money either.
Correct. And that's another thing too, that I state. Like, all right, with everything being hyper accelerated during the pandemic, even if there may be hundreds of price reductions within a week's time, but it's just bringing it to where the normal appreciation would be anyways. It's not like
Oh
those
no, no,
reductions.
no! It's not. No, it's not even that. We're off by, like, last week's report. We're off by like 2%.
Mhm.
Prop home values are like 2 point, like, but not. It's not three. It doesn't get to three
From normal
percent.
appreciation.
No, 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 no. From the peak, not
Mm.
normal.
Okay,
From the
okay.
peak
Still
is
high. Okay,
it's
gotcha.
off. It's like 2 point something percent, but from the peak of the pricing, like, you know what I mean. It's not even
So
normal.
it's not even, yeah.
No. I mean, it's just, from the peak, but the peak wasn't normal. So we're no way near, like, saying that, even, that property values, pre-pandemic. So if you compare property values today to 2019, we're
Hmm.
not even close to saying that we're losing that money, like that gain in real estate values.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that number is just not. It's just not a big number. I mean, yes, did people overpay? 100%. Are some people upside down in their properties? Yes, 100%. But they're not upside down on their properties because the market is making their properties be upside down. They're upside down on the property because they made bad decisions when they bought a house and paid $60,000 above asking price. I mean, that has nothing to do with the market. That's not.
Can you blame them for deciding to compete with what was happening in the market? I mean, think about it. When you got 30 real estate agents and buyers sitting outside of an open house, I'm talking about there was this one home we listed in Claremont um last year, and I'm telling you, it was like it was it was clockwork. Like the way people were standing outside in
Yeah,
line was insane.
my across the street from my house, this house was sold, and it sold for 65,000 above asking. And I saw the thing on, I saw the people, the cars parking on my street. Like, it was
Like it was a
insane.
party.
No, more than that. Like, it was like 60 something couples that came in that weekend. It was insane. It wasn't people, couples. It was
Mhm.
insane. It was madness. I mean, 65 grand over asking. I mean, it's just insane. Just those are just numbers that just don't. They're
You would have
boggling.
thought it was Valentine's Day at a restaurant.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Absolutely. I mean, it's just like they were giving it away for free, you know. But I mean, yes, I do. I think people are to blame. I mean, I just made bad decisions. I mean, at the end of the day, when you make a bad decision, you got no one to blame but yourself, you know.
But is it considered a bad decision if again, because don't get it twisted, there were still properties that were not selling during the pandemic. So
sure, yeah, if they were overpriced, yeah.
Is it considered a bad decision if I'm in my home, I overpaid, let's just say $60,000, but I'm content in my home, and regardless of where the market perceives its value, I'm content in my home. Is it really a bad decision?
That's 100. I mean, that's yes if you're content. If you're trying to sell and you're upside down, then obviously you're not content. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people that are finding, oh, I'm upside down, the small amount of foreclosures, and the people that are struggling, this, you know, with the price. It's because of the decisions they make. It's not because the market got them there. That's what I'm trying to say. It's you know, the ones that bought it and this is my house and I'm staying here. Yeah, but it's the ones that are trying to sell, you know, that are in trouble. And I find it. I mean, I saw it here. Here in Florida, I think what drove the market was the out-of-state buyers. I mean, that was part of the problem. The people that bought across the street from my house are out of state.
Yeah. Oh yeah, those are the people that they had the cash to throw on top.
Yeah. They sold up there, and you know, I mean, and it's a classic. I don't know. I honestly haven't checked on that. They have.
I just sold my condo in New York for $1 million. And I can buy a whole house in Florida for 450.
Yeah, done. You know, and well, they just I don't know the story. I didn't, you know, they were not here long enough. You know what I mean? Because they actually sold the house in like March.
Yeah,
March-ish, somewhere in there. I don't remember, February, March, somewhere in there is when they sold the house. Right before the, you know, at the peak, they sold it. You know what I mean? But they didn't move until like June, July, because they were living in Illinois.
Oh, okay.
So you know what I mean? They just, the house was there, you know, whatever. And then you know, I talked to one of the guys, you know, I met him, one of the gentlemen, you know, and he told me that they were moving somewhere else. So they kind of landed here temporarily, and they were buying somewhere else.
So it was just a stepping stone for them.
Correct, but so I don't know, and I haven't checked. I have no idea if I don't think they sold it. At least there were no for sale signs, so I'm thinking they rented it.
Okay.
But I mean, what they pay for, I know what they paid for. Rent that covered that. It's just.
Well, I have this buyer. He sent me a home last night. He said, any idea what this home originally sold for, right? So I looked it up this morning, and when I looked at it, the owners, right, they bought it for $12,300, but it was vacant land. They bought the vacant land, so there's no telling what they spent on construction, but they bought that piece of land for $12,300 back in 1998, March 16th, 1998, and the person before them had bought that same land for $3,700 back in 1972.
But 12 grand in 1998. I remember we had some friends in Boston who bought some property here. It was in Ocala, and this guy paid like $15,000 for a lot. I know, you know, we knew them. There were a couple that they were paying, working to pay this thing. In 1998, I was just, you know what I mean? I was just getting started. My daughter was born in 98. I was just working, and I can remember like, geez, I wish I had, you know, 15,000 to, you know what I mean? Like it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, back then that was a lot of cash to just have to buy a lot in Florida, you know what I mean? But compared to now, absolutely, if you look at it as what's he buying a house for? That's the real question.
My buyer?
Yeah.
Oh, for his family.
No. What amount?
Oh, no. That house is not, we don't have it under contract or anything.
No,
But
I mean, but what's the price of the house? Like, is there a sales price? Like, what's he comparing it to? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, if he's trying to say, oh, how much did this cost? 12,000
let me see, because that
plus
one,
plus the
I don't,
construction. But what I mean, that's hard to
I
say.
don't, no, I don't even think this one is on the market. I
Oh,
think
so he was just curious of what the price was. I
correct.
mean, you figure the size, depending on the size of the property, but I mean, if you stick build a house,
Oh, my bad. It's on the market for 749,000.
there you go. Okay, how much?
749,000.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, depends on that. So it's got to be that's a big house. That's a big.
Yeah, I
That's
mean it's sitting on nearly 4.5 acres. The home,
where is that?
it's the square footage. It's in Orlando.
Okay,
It's here in Orlando.
so it's I
Square
mean, but
footage
that's
is
a
2,800, 35 total, right? 2,800 under AC. But check this out. This is the more important question. How long has it been on the market?
well. It seems to me that it's overpriced. Or no?
It's been on the market 341 days.
Oh, there you go. See, it's a definitely seemed overpriced as you kept on describing. It definitely seemed overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's trying to. They're trying to. Did they just build it, or did he build it and live in it?
Oh no, they've lived in it for years now. They built it in
Ah,
1999.
okay. So they build it back to. Oh, forget about it. They
Yeah.
cost. Oh yeah. So, but I mean, they stick built 2,800 square feet,
Mm-hmm.
150,000.
No, 750,000.
No. I'm talking about the cost of stick building.
Oh,
Stick
gotcha.
building that house in 1999, 1998,
Mm-hmm.
2,800 square feet. $150, not much more than that. Say 200. There's no way there was 200.
Yeah, at that time. Yep.
200 cost of the later in the 2000s, but not at that time is. But say what? But say 200. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the vig. He's trying to get a little bit higher vig on his investment. And yeah, he's not going to sell. That's a bit extensive.
Yeah. But it's you know, it goes to show. I mean, boy, do you know if vacant land right now for 12,000 in Orlando,
Oh, no, well, that doesn't exist. I mean, that's just not,
4.3 acres?
yeah, that doesn't exist. I mean, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
Unless it's
So
on some swampland or something. And other than that, you can find a property for 12 grand. And
it's a beautiful piece of property, and that level of appreciation is amazing.
absolutely, absolutely.
So, but clearly, him being at that price for almost a year's time, because the interest rates didn't shift until last June. So that means he's been on the market. They went active on the market. And here's the real problem. Original price 849.
There you go.
So they went on the market February 8th of last year.
They went on the market right when the rates were starting to go up.
I mean, they really went up, they really shot up in like June.
Correct. But the trend started, like it just started tricking. The market started turning.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the market started, you saw the like February, but then March, April, you start seeing the as they kind of crept up, and in June is finally when they went up like 7%.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember I told one of my colleagues he had a home that I had found for him and he flipped. And I told him, I was like, listen, you should probably list it before you even finish it. Because I just, looking at the numbers and seeing how things were moving, I was like, and it was right before June that I told him that in May. Like, go ahead and list it, even if it's incomplete. And then, he kind of missed the mark. He wound up staying on the market just a little bit longer than he wanted to. He still made out good on it. But he could have done a little bit better if he was under contract beforehand.
Before things started,
yeah.
That was a stressful time, man, for me when I was, I was with a builder before,
mm-hmm.
and that was like, it was stressful time, man. It
What
really was.
builder were you with? If you don't
Meritus.
mind disclosing.
No, Meritus Homes.
Meritage Homes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, people were freaking out. I mean, people were freaking out, because they put houses under contract, at 3.5%, and the rates were 7. I mean, people were absolutely like freaking out, and I mean, it was stressful time. Like, people's emotions at that time it was just really, really brutal, really, really brutal.
Absolutely. And
Meritage
unfortunately,
they did a really, really good job. They actually like really did a good job. Like, they took care of their buy. Like, they bought the rate. They bought packages of rates for people that were already on the contract.
oh, so they were trying their best to honor what was originally agreed upon.
Oh, 100%. And they did. That's what I'm saying. They did an amazing job at it. I had never gone through anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the rates were never like, I'd never gone through anything like that. So, and I really didn't have vast experience with builders, because Massachusetts, there's just not something I did a lot of. So, but I was impressed. I never seen anything like that. I was like, oh my God, like, they actually spent all this money. They bought the rate and offered it to people, not a buy down. Like, they didn't offer people actually permanent buy down.
A permanent buy down.
Yeah. I don't remember what the rate ended up being, like so we had to go back and lock the people that were, it was a lot of work, because you had to deal with the emotions of people, because people were super stressed, really, really worried and stressed, and they can't afford to, it was just,
that was on top of the fact that, the delivery times were all delayed with new construction.
correct.
So
I have to say again, Meritage, they really did a phenomenal job. I mean, I have to say that obviously there was delays, but it was a lot of stuff, like, like windows, the garage door openers, those things that was completely out of their control. Not, it's just there was houses that were finished and the garage door opener wasn't in there.
Yeah.
And they couldn't close because they couldn't pass the final inspection. So, it was not, they did a phenomenal job. I was really, it just, they really did. And
I have yet to sell a Meritage home. I haven't gone through the sales process.
I recommend them. I really do. And like I said, it's just the dealing with the emotions of people in that time was just, to me, was very, very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
People were legit. And again, there were some people that canceled, obviously, that, they just could not do it. So some people canceled. But overall, at least there really wasn't that many cancellations.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, they stepped up and they bought these rates down and allowed people to lock, significantly, lower than what the market was doing. And the Meritage didn't increase the price of the homes. Like, it's not, it's not like, they honor the pricing. It was just the payment that people were just,
unable to.
Some people would not qualify at the higher rate, and some people could not afford it, or did not want to put themselves in that situation with the uncertainty, right? Because they didn't know how long and how, They didn't know any of this stuff. So it was, for sure, it was stressful for people, man. I was just like, that situation is, it's not. I can't imagine myself like being in that situation,
Yeah.
If I'm moving from out of state, even if I'm in the state and we're moving and we got all these things planned, and all of a sudden my mortgage payment is twice as much as it was going to be before. Whoa, we gotta talk about this. So no bueno.
Mm-hmm. Especially with the fact that you can't even lock in your rate until you're 30 to 45 days to close it.
Correct. See, because now they did change some of the, lenders did change some of the long-term policies and so on and so forth, but it was expensive to do a long-term lock.
Mm-hmm.
The way they were before, it was, you do a long-term lock, but then, it's like over 6-month lock, it's like a half a price to the, you got to add half a point in rate, just to the rate. Just, it was too much. Like, people, so that trying to do a long-term lock would just bring them even higher. So it wasn't, that was just not an option. Like, long-term, people were like, oh, no, what do you mean?
Yeah, but what if, because then there's the possibility, what if it's lower by the time
what if the things fix? So so it was stressful for sure. Like, having those conversations were like, I had 100 and, I don't know, you know, the peak of that year, I closed 125 million. So, whatever amount of loans that was, it was just insane amount of, like, it was just the amount of phone calls you had to call to tell people. And it was, every call was like, every single phone call was just draining, it was like a counseling session. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
it was tough.
You got to
like,
deal with the dramatic pauses, the holding their
yeah.
breath. It's like,
Well, and people are freaking out. I mean, people were legit freaking out about this and the payments.
how many of those calls were in Spanish?
Quite a bit.
Yeah,
Because I had I had a there was a couple of others that spoke Spanish, but I was the one that they go to for Spanish. So
I know.
So
I could imagine how many gasps you heard.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No me diga, John.
It was not good. I mean, it wasn't fun. Like, it wasn't a fun. 2008, dealing with with that in 2008 wasn't fun. But in 2008 it was a different feeling, because it was it was the people that already had the house. Like, it wasn't that, you know what I mean? It was a different crisis. People already owned the homes, and their prices went up twice, double the payment. So that was a different, but they already owned the home. So I guess I didn't get that as much directly on the daily basis with every single client, because they already owned the home. So when when they already own a home, there's not really a reason for them to go back to talk to the lender. You know what I mean? So it's not a conversation I was really having with people every day. But this time it's for people locking and under contract, and when are we closing? Oh, we don't know. We're waiting for the garage door open. You know what I mean? I was to throw that on top of it. So
but we've been waiting for the garage door opener for 3 months now.
Yeah, I think definitely my blood pressure definitely shot through the roof at those times, because they were definitely stressful times for people. Hopefully we don't go back to those times.
Yeah, no, I had a buyer out of Chicago. Boy, we went through it, because they were an FHA buyer, and I felt like I was on a mission to save outer space dealing with that.
Get somebody to accept their offer.
Get
somebody to accept their offer.
Yeah, and they were coming in, from the sister would fly in from out of town. Then we would go, it was like, it was a mission. I dealt with, like, at the time, I felt like I was dealing with 3 FHA buyers at the same time. And it was just like the level of mental preparation I had to go through to deal with those buyers and manage the whole emotional part and multiple okay, it's one thing to deal with a multiple offer situation singularly, right? But now you're dealing with multiple offers in multiple offer situations.
Yeah.
So
and in that, unfortunately, that market, whether it was 2 offers or 100 offers, whether it was 2 other offers or 100 other offers, you're going in with an FHA loan. The odds of you getting that is slim to none.
Slim to none.
Because the buyers were, sellers were just, FHA, which is unfortunate, because FHA is a great loan. If the property has issues, you can't live, and people were not thinking, I'm not gonna, give me the highest, best and highest, whatever that crazy thing.
Highest and best.
I mean, it's insane, Robert. I mean, there's a couple of builders that those I won't name, but there was a couple of builders that they were making people like do your best and final, and people were like overbidding, and these escalated clauses that were people putting into these things, and they started with the auctions that they were doing, and people were actually bidding on these things. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, what are you thinking? Like, I mean, where are you going? Like, why would you do that?
This one particular builder, again, I'm not gonna say their names, but it was literally like a lottery pick. Like, they would release the lots on Friday, and then you have those 3 days to submit your highest and best offer. And they even allowed you to submit an offer on more than one of the options that they released for that weekend, right? And basically, you don't know which one you're gonna end up with if you get one.
If you get one.
You get what I'm saying? So one of my buyers, he went, and so like the one that he ended up getting was the one that he least wanted.
Ah,
So it was just like, but it was like no other choice.
yeah.
His highest and best didn't win on the other two.
Yeah.
So
And
it was
the ones
crazy.
that had the escalating
Price escalation
price
clause.
escalation clause, yeah,
Hmm.
you go insane. Like, what if?
That was popular. That was
Oh
popular.
yeah, that's what they were doing. Absolutely. I mean, that was just this, just a madness. I mean, it was just madness.
Yeah.
But
All
anyway,
right. Well, that pretty much wraps up episode 16 for today. John, you got any last minute thoughts before we let him go?
if you haven't bought a property and you're working on and buy one, rates are going to come down, and property values are not going to decrease, and it's going to get tighter. And eventually the spring season is going to be here. Very limited though, as you can, I'm sure you can, just the number of properties that are out there. Even though 200, it's a lot of properties, but that's really nothing with the amount of buyers that are out there. So there is a market of people, once rates creep down a little bit and people get some sort of feeling that rates are going to be okay, you should see some, pick up and buyer activity. So if you haven't bought, go buy a house, because it's going to.
If you don't already own, it doesn't hurt to apply for a loan.
There you go.
So, alrighty then, that's episode 16 for you, Robert Kenneth Morillo with Team Aroa at Compass, Florida. License number 3373543 with John Sepulveda.
John Sepulveda, MLS 1309244. Thank you for listening, and talk to you tomorrow.